Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה. Okay, we're so wide open, you guys are all over the map. Just because we had Tu B'Shvat Seder last night, so we moved, and everything is in the room we normally teach in, so. Anyhow. No class next Monday, it's a holiday, so I don't know what time we'll be back, but I know Rosh Hashanah my boys will be playing golf, so somewhere.
Oh, this is hard.
Did you not take off the shell?
Oh, you know I have to. I
Is
don't
that
have my
the
glasses
shell?
on. I don't have my
Oh
glasses
my
on.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of hard and hard.
No, I
For
know.
pistachio.
It would also help if I wore my glasses, so pardon me.
Okay, so, ow, that would be very
Don't
hard.
break your teeth.
You might want to spit that out. Those are kind of,
Yeah.
okay.
Now.
Okay, so, but in 2 weeks we start a really beautiful part. We're going to start studying Talmud, which is so wonderful, so magical, and so magnificent on every level. But tonight, what we are scheduled to do, according to our syllabus, is holidays. There is a belief that you can understand. I feel like I'm going like this on my hands.
Tell you what, I'm trying not to choke on the shelf. Look at her. You don't have to look at
Okay, so there is a belief that if you understand the Siddur, the prayer book, and the Jewish calendar, you know everything you need to know about Judaism.
Oh,
Because it's all hidden within them.
sounds like a good investment to me.
Okay, it's all hidden within. Okay, and it's very, very beautiful and very wonderful. Best book I know of to explain in a simplistic way and a good way about the Jewish holidays is this book right here. It's called The Jewish Way. It's by Rabbi Greenberg, Living the Holidays.
Why does it say the Jewish why? Or
The Jewish Way.
Okay.
And
I do need.
you do need glasses. So it really is a terrific book in explaining the historical realities of the holidays and explaining also how they're practiced. It does not go into the mysticism of it, doesn't go into the deep levels of any holiday per se, but it really does explain what are these holidays and why do we have them and how do we practice them. So it's really, really a wonderful, wonderful piece. All right, so let us start our holiday cycle with last night and today. Last night was Tu B'Shvat, so we could start anywhere in the year, but this is just where we're going to start. Most people do not realize Tu B'Shvat is so important. It's so, so important. In Masechta Rosh Hashanah, the Talmudic tractate on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, maybe I will sit in a big comfy chair.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
I think you should.
I should do that, because I'm tired. Okay. So, oh, by the way, for anyone who does not have it, I suggest you get this book. It's called, I Love When That Happens. It's a biography of my friend Schwartzy, which we just had the memorial. Okay, so am I too relaxed teaching like this? This seems very weird to me, but that's okay. It's such a comfy chair. Okay, so.
You could bring the kitchen table and put it in the center.
And just do that. Yeah, no, I'm feeling very, if I start to fall off a nap, forgive me. So, Tu B'Shvat in the Talmudic tractate on Rosh Hashanah, it says that there are 4 New Years, and one of them is the New Year of the Trees. It's the 15th day of the month of Shvat, which means it's placed on the same level as Rosh Hashanah. It's New Year. The reason we say 2 is because we use letters for numbers. And so since the 15th, we've used the letter for 10, the letter for 5. But the letter for 10 is Yud, and the letter for 5 is A. And as a result, it would be Yah B'Shabbat, and that's the first 2 letters of God's name, so we don't do that. Okay, we say 2, Tet being 9 and Vav being 6. So 9 plus 6 equals 15. Okay? Tu B'Shvat, the month of Shvat.
Is the story of another reason why 2001 they named the computer HAL
Why?
is one step ahead of IBM, HAL.
Wow, funny, I didn't know that. It's very funny. Yeah, so then we call it 2. Okay? So, I didn't know that's great. That's really great. So, this holiday is traditionally practiced. We plant trees, we celebrate ecology, but really it's very similar to other cultures. What they do is called a flowering tree ceremony. They go and they sit with the tree and they meditate with the tree and have the tree hold reflections for them about what they need to learn. We do the same thing. For Tu B'Shvat, traditional Tu B'Shvat Seder, just like Passover Seder, you have 4 cups of wine. So it corresponds to the 4 letters of God's name that we talked about, the Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And 1 glass is white, one's white with a little red, one's red with a little white, one's all red. Okay? The foods are the 4 different products of the trees. Typically, the first is a nut. We use pistachios. I like pistachios. Don't chew the shell.
Wear your glasses.
They're somewhere. Right? So that's one. That's the nut is hard on the outside and hard on the inside. The idea being, what is in our life hard on the, when are we hard on the outside and hard on the inside? When should we be? When should we not be? For example, it's an advantageous thing when you're going to war or conflict. Okay? Then we have an orange, which is hard on the outside but soft on the inside. One should be hard on the outside but still retain our vulnerability and softness on the inside. A beautiful example being a parent or a teacher, possibly, who needs to be soft while they're also being disciplinary. The third fruit is, first one's the hay, then a vav, now we're at the first hay, which is a date, which is soft on the outside and hard on the inside. One should be soft on the outside but still keep our boundaries. As an example, if we're doing interfaith work, I'm going to a Christmas Mass. I can appreciate the beauty of it, but I'm not taking the wafer and wine. Kind of bland. And the last is a fig, which is soft on the outside and soft on the inside. One should be totally permeable. As an example, in a relationship with our spouses. And so we meditate with each of these, and some of you did that last night. You know, it's a beautiful experience. We tell stories and teachings. So Tu B'Shvat is a new year. It is a new year of the trees. It is a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Okay? That's your question on your head.
You know, granted, my experience prior to adulthood, prior to being a parent, was very limited as far as the calendar year. Very limited. And I can say that I only knew of this one New Year by mentioning it, meaning I probably read about it. I don't remember it ever being a focus until I had children of my own.
And then often religious schools will have the children plant trees.
Right.
It's typically that. In fact, in the house Allison grew up in, she once drove me by it, so when she and her sister were very little, they planted little trees. At that time they planted them this far away, which seemed like a long distance. But now, decades later, there are these big trees that are right next to each other. And they are trees. And when is the right time to plant a tree?
All the time.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
When's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. Okay, so it's really beautiful. And we should observe it, and we should take the lessons of trees. And one of the things that we do also is, as you were here last night, you notice that by saying the prayers and intention, really understanding the fruit, it became a different experience of eating the fruit, didn't it? Okay, the oranges tasted really luscious. The date was sweeter. We really appreciated it and had developed a relationship with it. The next holiday we find is the holiday of Purim. Purim is found in the book of Esther. We studied about the book of Esther, and it is the reading of the Ganze Megillah, or the entire book of Esther, the scroll of Esther. And in this book we learn of the evil Achashverosh, or Achashverosh the drunk, the evil Haman the minister, the good Mordechai the minister, the good, beautiful and good Esther, and Vashti. We discussed, I think, last week. We talked about this book. And so we learn that whole story and we tell the story. Now the practice is we're supposed to get so drunk we cannot tell between the blessings of Mordechai and the curses of Haman. And those two phrases have the same numerological value. Same gematria. And so we get drunk on Purim. Okay, we also are supposed to give gifts of charity, of food, and of money. And it is a time to let out our inner shadow. And I always think of it as the ultimate yogian holiday. You are embracing your shadow on that one day. Okay, you're getting drunk, you're getting dressed up in costumes, often contrasexually. And by the way, I do not look good in a muumuu, in case anyone was questioning that issue. It's really a totally ugly side. So I don't do that, but you know, when we did Purim celebrations, I've gotten dressed up in an entire African grand buba, the hat and the whole thing, or whatever it may be. And you drink, and the idea is that you drink, and you keep drinking until you get to that moment, as we discussed last time, where the Haman and his sons are impaled, they're killed, and the cantor chants out those 22 words of 10 sons of Haman, 10 sons' names of Haman, and in chanting that, we are cleansing the entire world of evil. So I believe. David, you were able to get a tape of it last week? Did it come out?
Of the
class?
class? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we got it out.
Sorry.
All right, so that's Purim. That's the holiday of Purim. And it's a fun time. That's why we don't need Halloween, which is a religious holiday as well. How many of you realize Halloween is religious? All Hallows Eve is part of the tree of 3 holidays. All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and Day of the Dead. The idea that the veil between the living and dead is open in that theology. And so people dress up, they do costumes. What do we get in costumes too? We have lots of fun. We often have a beauty contest or a dancing contest, whatever it may be.
You forgot the most important thing.
Drinking.
Well, second best thing.
Drinking.
Hamantash.
And we have Hamantash. Do we know why we have Hamantash?
Yeah, Haman's hat.
3 corners, and that his nose was one idea, but 3 corners and his pocket, 3-cornered pocket. And so there's this whole song, my hat, it has 3 corners, 3 corners has my hat, and if it doesn't have 3 corners, it could not be my hat. And sing that song. And it's a lot of fun, and it's this fun holiday, and we have Hamantash. And we'll be having our Hamantash Girl on March 8th. That's a fundraiser. I hope you guys will. Did you guys get emails? Because David said that we're not getting enough registrations yet for this early. So we have Purim. And again, we are to give charity as part of that. Okay. Our next big holiday comes in the spring, called, at one point it's called Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the spring. We call it, the other name for it is Pesach. So Passover, we all know the simple pieces of Passover. You have 8 days, you have the Seder, it always goes on too long, you have the second night Seder, and the Seder meaning order. There's an order to the ritualized foods we eat, just like there was last night. And we retell the story of the Exodus. In the traditional Haggadah, Moses' name is actually never mentioned. One of the other things that's very important in Passover is it says very specifically that it is because of the women that we were able to come free. And so that's always a good thing at your Seder to remind your teenage boy children, or 20-something boys. Passover is this amazing holiday. We eat matzah for the entire time. And it's really a joyous, powerful time. All holidays you will find have a meta-historical quality to them. In other words, they have a historical quality. Purim is about what happened in Shushan. Pesach is what happened in the Exodus. But they also have a philosophical teaching for us today. So they are meta-historical. And that teaching, Passover is about freedom. And what are we slaves to? We always put at our Passover table, when we Seder, we always ask people as we go around, when we get to the plagues, tell us of a modern plague. We've heard about lice and frogs. What are the modern plagues? AIDS. And we always keep politics off. AIDS, sickness, coronavirus now, whatever it may be. Or the modern plagues, greed, things like that. Poverty, homelessness, whatever they are. And so we do that as well. And you need to make it important for the children, because that's really the most important thing, is the younger generations. They're more important than the older people, and Passover especially. There's also a last night Seder. How many of you have been to a last night Seder? And we traditionally have first night, second night, and last night. The last night of Seder is really beautiful. It's the night that we cross the Sea of Reeds, the night before we cross the Sea of Reeds the next morning. And so we traditionally have a Seder on that evening, similar to the first night, but also contemplating about what are we leaving behind as slaves and what kind of freedom we come. And it's important at Passover to realize what are we slaves to, because we're all slaves to something. And if you think you're not a slave, then you're a slave to your own influence. Okay? So we have this wonderful experience. And in Passover, we eat matzah. Why do we eat matzah? Does anyone know?
I think it had,
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say because the leavened bread has to do with the ego, doesn't it?
So, okay,
There.
so there's a meta-historical. Historical, that's the philosophical reason.
Right.
That all that leaven does is add puffiness but no substance.
Right,
So this is the idea of letting go of our puffiness and our arrogance.
right.
And the historical reason is because they had to rush out of Egypt
Mhm.
and didn't have time for the bread to rise. Okay, so we have that. There are wonderful Sephardic customs. Has anyone done a Sephardic Seder? That's a lot of fun. Remember, in the Sephardi, they only let the 5 grains that are technically prohibited in the Torah. Those are the only 5 grains they don't have. In Ashkenazi, we think that anything that expands in water over 18 minutes is not allowed. So we don't have corn or rice. Sephardi do. We have rice, I think they have. I know they have rice. Okay? Sephardi, so it's a different kind of practice. The Seder's often a lot of fun when it gets to the discussion about the slaves in Egypt. They take scallions and whip each other around the room whipping each
Yeah.
other. Okay, I did a whole talk once, and I was probably doing it right before Passover, about customs of Passover around the world. There's some really fun customs.
I have a lot of neighbors who came from Tehran.
They scallion each other.
Yes, and I remember the first time just went, I'd only heard about it and just thought it was over the top. I
Oh, there's-
probably enjoyed it a lot more now.
There's a lot of things. Some wonderful custom. I think it's from Turkey. That well, first of all, the rosas, right? In the Ashkenazi, it's supposed to be paste. In the Ashkenazi, it's apples and nuts. Right? But the Sephardi, that's like
Dates.
figs and dates and orange peel and all. It's delicious. Much better tasting. And it counteracts the downside of matzah better for your digestive system. But in Turkey, I believe it is, they add a little bit of sand or dirt, just a little bit, into the mixture of the rosas, because it should be like bricks. All sorts of different customs. It's really, really fun. So Passover is about really letting the historical reality of the Exodus and the meta-historical reality of letting go of our arrogance.
Haven't the foods that can be eaten, wasn't that opened up a little more not too many years ago?
Well, not to me, it's been opened up depending on what community you are in different ways. No, I mean, what's happened in America is Ashkenazi Jews have said, oh, you know what, I want to make it easier. Reformed Ashkenazi Jews want to make it easier on themselves, so, okay, I'll have corn, okay, I'll have rice. Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
which in America is made with corn syrup. Every year, right before Passover, they release bottles of Coca-Cola, and they're made with actual sugar cane. So
Mexican Coke.
so they don't have to deal with the corn
Yeah.
that's prohibited. And I forget, one has white cap, one has yellow cap.
Yeah.
I have a friend who, I think the yellow cap is the
It
sugar.
says
Jello
Pesach
cup.
on
It says
it.
Pesach. It says yellow is the sugar.
Jello.
And so I have friends who like really love Coke, and they'll buy cases right before Pesach. So all year they're drinking Coca-Cola with sugar canes and corn syrup.
So who knew that Mexico had that big a Jewish population?
Yeah, I think it was just easier.
Well, it's outside the USA. That's all.
Is it everywhere outside the USA?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just here because it's so
Yeah.
much, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So, that's the Coke, there's all sorts of things. Now, immediately starting after Passover, after when we first evening of Passover, we have this thing called the counting of the Omer. An Omer is a size, a certain amount of grain that will be brought every day. But it is a period between Pesach and Shavuot. Shavuot is the evening of when we get the Torah. Okay, on Mount Sinai. And it's a 7-week process. And each day is, not only do you count that this is the 3rd day of the 4th week, etc. But each day corresponds to a different energy center, a different sphera in our being. If you look in a prayer book, not even in Orthodox, you'll find it in conservative prayer books as well. When it says counting of the Omer, it will say today is the 9th day, and it is, let me make it about 7 8, so it'd be, let's say, so it says this is the Bina of Bina. It's a wonderful book, I think there's a wonderful book called Sfirot. It's by Rabbi Haber. Phenomenal book about the counting of the Omer and meditations for each day.
Didn't we go through that a year ago?
Yes, go through every year.
Red book, Shavuot.
Exactly. Go through it. It's
I
wonderful.
found it out
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful piece.
But that was like, originally it was agricultural, wasn't
No, it's
it?
also, it's simultaneous. It's not one or the other. Originally, it was both. And so it's the counting and preparation to receive Sinai. Now, on the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, we call it Log Ba'omer. No, Lamed is the number, the letter that corresponds to 30. Gimel is the letter that corresponds to 3. So Log, is a very special day. During the first 32 days, we try to avoid having celebrations, etc. But on the 33rd day, it's traditional to have big celebrations. It's traditional to have your first haircut, or have your haircut on the 33rd day of Log Ba'omer. On the 33rd day of the counting. It is traditional to have big bonfires. If you go to Israel, there's huge bonfires. Lots of bows, because it goes back to Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, died and revealed these mysteries on his death day, which was the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. And there was never a rainbow during his life, because he was the covenant between God and the people. Remember, God gives us a rainbow as a covenant that God will never destroy the world again through the water. Well, apparently during Shimon Bar Yochai's life, there was never a rainbow, because he was the covenant. So he gave them to the Lord. And it's this amazing holiday, and often we will have bonfires and study all night. Have a lot of fun doing that. It's a really wonderful process. After that, we then get to the next big part, which is at the end of the counting of the Omer. We have this holiday called Shavuot. Okay? Shavuot meaning weeks, because we've just finished 7 weeks. And it is the time, historical, remember the idea about historical, it is historically the time when we receive the Torah on Mount Sinai. So we prepare for it. And traditionally what we do on Shavuot is we study, first of all, we eat dairy desserts, cheesecakes. Got a lot of Jewish holiday that has cheesecake. It is an agricultural holiday, harvesting the fruit in that time, summertime type of thing. And it is also very sweet and joyous, and we study Torah all night. Now, Torah is not just the first 5 books. Torah is actually everything. Everything that's Jewish text is Torah. This is Torah. This book, Shlomo Krabach's stories, these are Torah. Right? They're all considered Torah. What we traditionally do is we study Torah. Typically, the book of Ruth is read on Shavuot, the first story of conversion. And there is a text that goes back to, we believe, about the Middle Ages, called Tikkun El Shavuot. That's the real traditional text to study. Tikkun El Shavuot is this amazing book that makes you understand what the 10 Commandments are, and what our relationship with God is, and what Shavuot really is. So let me try and explain. In this book, Tikkun El Shavuot, the problem is trying to sit in this chair, I can't sit up, I just want to. Okay, Tikkun El Shavuot is this amazing text in which you study the first paragraph and last paragraph of every portion in the Torah. Okay? It's like just reading the cliff notes. It's where you study the entire giving of the 10 Commandments from Parsha Yitro. It's where you study the first and last paragraph of every book of the prophets and of the writings. So you study the entire book of Ruth. Okay, this is all part of it. Okay?
One night.
This is one night.
But there's cheesecake.
There's cheesecake. And I make Cuban coffee. And let's just be clear, I make good Cuban coffee.
And since we have to have the fruits, we can have strawberries on top.
Absolutely. Tiramisu is also a good choice. So ice cream, it's all good choices, right? So this is tradition we study. And in this Tikkun al Shavuot, there is also the first and last lines of each tractate of the Talmud. The first and last paragraphs of each tractate of the Mishnah and the Gemara. There are excerpts from the Zohar and from Sefer Yetzirah, which is mysticism, and some other assorted teachings. The idea is, if you've been studying this your whole year, these are just little things to make you remember the whole portion. So you read the beginning and end, oh, now I remember and I'm conscious of that whole portion. I don't need to really study it like I do during the week for the Shabbat Torah portion. Make sense? So it's not, you're not spending an hour or 2 hours on each little line when you're doing the whole Tikkun al Shavuot. One of the problems with Tikkun al Shavuot is that there is only, because people who do it are ultra-Orthodox, it's only in Hebrew. I actually compiled what we use in our community. It's about a quarter to a third of the Tikkun al Shavuot in English. So we can do it in English. What's fascinating is when you understand what all of this is by the time the evening ends. Because the very last thing that is said in this Tikkun al Shavuot, which means the rectification of the evening of Shavuot, the last teachings on it, the last text we study are, first of all, the book Song of Songs. Now, do you remember what Song of Songs is about? It's love. It's love, and the love between God and Israel, marriage between God and Israel. And then the last thing you say in this Tikkun al Shavuot are the 7 blessings of the wedding. Shavuot Brachot. And if you study all night, by the time you get to morning, you recognize that all of Torah, oral and written, is a ketubah. It's the ketubah between God and Israel. It's all the ketubah. And when you have that take on it, then it all changes. Your relationship to the text radically changes when you realize this is all the love agreement. I mean, there's our family ketubah, my wife's my ketubah, but it becomes, you realize that is the ketubah between God and Israel. And that's what reading that leads to. And then in the morning, because you study all night till dawn, and then you go and you do your morning blessings. And then you have a reading of the 10 Commandments in the service that day. And it's very beautiful and very wonderful. And it's great when people are willing to stay up all night. Rarely does that happen. Usually they crash somewhere between 11 and 3. But it's a great process to really study this stuff and to experience, have it run through. Because even right now, if I just remind you, okay, the book of Noah, the Parsha of Noah starts with Noah was a righteous man, right? And it ends with Abraham's father, Terah. Okay? That just, all of a sudden, all the stuff of the flood comes back to your consciousness. Makes sense? And that's what we go through. Because we've been studying all year, the idea is that just by having a cliff note beginning and ending, you have an idea of what it is truly about. It is an amazing holiday. It is one of the 3 festivals. The 3 festivals where in ancient times you would need to make a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem. Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And Shavuot is always the hardest holiday, typically the hardest holiday to get a congregation to participate in. It's in late spring, early summer, it's one night, it's a nighttime thing, it's a lot of study, it goes till dawn. It's much easier to say, hey, let's have a Passover stand. Or hey, come on over to the Sukkot. Right? I mean, last year we had to put 300 people plus go through the Sukkot over the course of the week. That's easier than to say, hey, come study for a night.
So is it night?
So that's the December. And then in the daytime, there's also you study and there's services. But the really magical piece is that nighttime. And so it's a wonderful holiday, especially when it leads one to recognize how beautiful the relationship is that God has dictated to us. This holy, holy covenant, this holy ketubah. Shavuot's a beautiful, wonderful holiday. And we study all night and we gain insights into our holy reading. Okay? How many of you have done Shavuot? It's fabulous. Well, I don't have to. It looks
Why
great.
is it at night? I'm sorry, I just,
Why is it at night?
yeah.
Because the cycle starts at sunset. Every Jewish holiday begins at sunset and goes to
Oh,
that's why.
alright.
Remember, because go back to the beginning of
Right,
Genesis,
right,
there was
right.
evening, there was morning, day one. So all of our day, our 24-hour cycle starts at
Okay.
sunset,
Alright.
not at midnight.
Thank
And,
you.
and so it's great. It's really wonderful. Once we had about 6 people who made it. You know, it started like 50, and then we had like 6 or 7 people who went across the street. It's really a beautiful experience.
No.
So some people crash, but you're studying anyhow. Getting through osmosis. All right, so that's Shavuot. That is a very big holiday. The next holiday is the 17th of Tammuz. A very important holiday that most people don't even recognize. It's a fasting holiday. The 17th of Tammuz is the day when Moses comes down with the tablets to see the golden calf, and the tablets are destroyed. Okay? We broke God's heart on that day, and so we're taught that we broke God's heart on that day, and He broke our hearts centuries later when He allowed the walls of Jerusalem to be broken. So we could be conquered. First destruction of the temple. And it's a fast day. It is also the first beginning of the High Holy Day period. The big high holidays start at Rosh Hashanah. Some people think they start earlier, not before. They actually start the 17th of Tammuz. Because when you track it through the different calendar, on Shavuot, the commandments are given. On 17th of Tammuz, they're destroyed. Moses has to go back, do a whole new set and everything else. And we get the second set on Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur is the day of forgiveness, because that's God showing that God is forgiving us for the golden calf. So this high holiday cycle actually starts 17th of Tammuz. Although for a temple it starts in May, because you're sending out. So that's, through the 17th of Tammuz, fasting day. The next holiday is a holiday called Tisha Bob. Tisha meaning ninth in the month of Av. This is 3 weeks after the 17th of Tammuz. Tisha B'Av is the bad day for Judaism. It's the Friday the 13th of everything Jewish. If you can think of something bad in Judaism, it probably happened on Tisha B'Av. Okay? First temple destroyed, second temple destroyed, persecution after persecution, martyrs killed, all sorts of one thing after the other happened on Tisha B'Av. Traditionally in that period between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av, that 3-week period, we do not, so it depends on how traditionally. There are those who are commanded on Tisha B'Av to fast, and we read the Book of Lamentations. There are those who, for all of the month of Av, the 1st through 9th of Av, choose not to have any meat, because we're in mourning, that happens. And there are people who will not have any meat from the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av. So if you eat at a kosher restaurant that you like, that's a meat restaurant, you better find out before the 17th of Tammuz if they're open for that 3-week period or not. Because most of them, that's when they shut down, clean up, do everything they need to do. They take those 3 weeks off. Okay. I will tell you from personal experience, it can be very frustrating if you go into town, let's go eat your favorite kosher meat restaurant, only to find, oh, they're closed this week. Okay, so let's check that. So it's that 3-week period of mourning. Traditionally, we do not have celebratory experiences on that day. We do have bar mitzvahs because bar mitzvah is based on Torah reading, but we do not have weddings, as an example, on that 3-week mourning period. Okay? Tradition. So that's 9th of Av. Then we have this month called Elul. The month of Elul is the month before Rosh Hashanah. So, again, the Jewish calendar is not January, February, March. Right? It's Elul, Tishrei, etc. And so, the month of Elul is the month immediately preceding the month of Tishrei, which is on Rosh Hashanah. The month of Elul is extremely, extremely important. It is a month of preparation for the high holidays that are about to begin. It's a month for the days of awesomeness, it is preparation for Yom Kippur. Elul, we say, is an acronym for, it's spelled Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed. We say that as an acronym. Each letter stands for a word. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. We are taught in the Siddiq world, we are taught that the king is in the field in the month of Elul. So all year, if you want to go see the king, you gotta go to his palace, and you gotta go through the chambers, and you gotta go through whatever else Mishigas to get to the king. And you're meeting the king in his chamber. But during the month of Elul, the king comes and hangs out with us in the field. Seeing how are we treating each other? How do we act with each other? Are we acting right and righteously, or how are we really acting? And that's a really important piece. This month of Elul, this month of preparation, before we get to Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Tisha, the first day of the new year. Rosh Hashanah, meaning the head of the year, the head of the cycles, is the first of the Amin Narim, the 10 days of awesomeness between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashanah, it is written, on Yom Kippur, it is sealed. On Rosh Hashanah, and the analogy I like to use is Rosh Hashanah is the opening arguments for court, and Yom Kippur, the verdict comes out. One of the things I found really fascinating is a number of years ago, I recall correctly, when O.J. Simpson was at trial, the opening arguments were Erev Rosh Hashanah, and the verdict came in Erev Yom Kippur. I remember that. For some reason, I remember that, however many decades ago that was. Right. And Rosh Hashanah would open our book of life. So there's this other tradition called an Akashic record, but there is a book of life that holds all the deeds that we've done. And it is our job to fix, before it gets written in ink, to fix anything from this past year in pencil, to erase it and fix it. How do we fix something we've done wrong? Well, the idea is that we've all done something called a chet. Chet is a term, it means, people translate it as a sin. That is not what it means. It is an archery term, meaning to shoot an arrow and miss the mark. That's actually what the word literally means. And we've shot arrows, and so we need to make tshuva, which means return or redemption or reconciliation. Or reconciliation. So, how do we make tshuva? The Rambam, Maimonides, teaches us in Shavuot, in the laws of making tshuva, how to do it. There's basically a few steps. You need to recognize what you did, you need to apologize to the person for what you did, and you need to fix it. Gotta fix it. And then you need to commit not to doing it again, and when you have the opportunity, you need to not do it again. As an example, God forbid, I threw a baseball through Mr. Poloni's window. To go to Mr. Poloni and say, Mr. Poloni, I'm so sorry, it was I who threw the ball through your window. Because my elbow was too low, my elbow was too high, whatever it may be. I apologize. I then need to fix his window. That's really important. We're not Christians. Someone saying, please forgive me, that doesn't cut it for us. We are people of action, we talk about, not a people of words. So it's great, right? I go to Mr. Poloni, hey, I'm the one who broke your window, sorry. That doesn't strengthen the relationship between us as humans. If I fix his window, it actually strengthens it. When I make a commitment, I'm not going to break your window because my elbow being too low again. Now, I may break the window because my elbow's too high, but I'm not going to do the same thing the same way. Okay? This is making tshuva. Now, Rosh Hashanah is a much more awesome day than Yom Kippur. Because it's scary. Court is open. And we're not sure what's going to happen. We then spend the next 9 days going to all the people we have hurt and making tshuva. Sometimes that can be very, 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 very difficult. Especially if you're in your 20s and you maybe weren't so ethical when you broke up with a girlfriend and you haven't talked to her in 10 months. You need to call her during those 10 days. Not that I'm speaking from any sort of experience about how uncomfortable that really can be, but, okay, it really is very uncomfortable. Now, sometimes you're going to go to someone, you're going to try and make tshuva, and you're going to say, Mr. Poloni, I'm sorry I broke your window and I want to fix it. Let me fix it. And he's going to say, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. And if you fix it, he's going to say, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. You're not forgiven. Well, after you've tried 3 times, no longer are you responsible. So if you were trying to make tshuva, let's say you were in your 20s to someone that you were not ethical with when you broke up in a relationship, again, I'm not saying I'm speaking from personal experience. Say man. And they don't respond after 3 times, you're clean. Okay? You don't need to make it. And you need to make it in the same venue that you did the chet. This is why there is no tshuva for gossip. Because other sins most other sins, most other mistakes, you can fix. But if you said and gossiped about someone, we always say Mr. Poloni, right? You gossiped about someone. How are you going to take that back? Because you don't know who that you gossiped to is now doing it, continue the gossip to someone else. Well, analogy, you take a bag of feathers, it's down the top of a large building, throw them out into the wind, and now try and collect every feather. Okay? Just don't know. So that's why gossip is shown hara, so problematic. So in Rosh Hashanah, we open our book of life, and we start to take a real honest inventory. I forget which step it is, but it's very analogous to one of the 12 steps about taking an honest
9.
inventory. Is that what it is? Okay. It's very analogous to one of the taking the inventory. And then you've got to make amends, which is another one of those steps. And
9 is the amends.
okay, so 9's amends. There's another one that's taking inventory, though. Taking honest inventory.
That's 4.
Okay, so 4 you take. But long before the bills, there was the bill and the AA programs.
Yeah.
We had our program, okay? Much more detailed. Honestly, I'm not going to go to 12-step program. So ours is just much more detailed and as a result successful. And so what you need to do is you go and you make, first take an honest inventory, then you make amends. You take the honest inventory traditionally, you take it on every level, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial, sexual, whatever levels may be. So mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, the 4 letters of God's name. You evaluate what you've done and you go and make tshuva. You go and fix it. An accounting, we call it cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of the soul. And so we have this process on Rosh Hashanah where we start making tshuva over those 9 days. This prepares us for the day of Yom Kippur, the full name of which is Yom HaKippurim, the day that is like Purim, the day of at-one-ment of atonement. And the idea is that on these 9 days beforehand, you have made tshuva with everyone you need to make tshuva with. On the 10th day, between you and God. Where have you hurt yourself? Where have you hurt God? And how do you fix it? And I said Rosh Hashanah is a much more awesome day, a much scarier day than Yom Kippur. How can I say that? Because in the Talmud it says in Masechta Yom Kippur that the holiness of the day brings forgiveness. If you realize, today is Yom Kippur, God please forgive me, God will. And it says in our liturgy that God says if you open the doorway for tshuva wide enough for the head of the pin, I will force it open wide enough for chariots. It also says God cannot forgive us for the sins we have made against other human beings. God can only forgive us for the sins we've made for ourselves and for other people. Have we not given our gifts away enough? Have we misused our gifts? Have we hurt ourselves? Have we hurt God? Have we not served God? That's what the day is about. And because the day itself brings forgiveness, we know as soon as we're honest, which goes back to the idea of being honest inventory, if we're very honest with God, God will forgive us. That is the promise God has made. So we hold him to his promise. Look, I messed up. Okay? Master of the universe, Ribono Shel Olam, I messed up. But you made an agreement on Yom Kippur. If I'm honest with you, you forgive me. So you know what? I'm holding you to your agreement because you made the contract. Okay? And Yom Kippur is this beautiful holiday in that way. We are not fasting in any way, shape, or form for penance. One of the biggest misconceptions about Yom Kippur is that it should be a day of suffering. The exact opposite. There are few things the rabbis agree on in the Talmud, but in 2 different places, they're very specific, and they say that Yom Kippur is one of the 2 happiest days of the year. The other one is Tisha Bob, which is sort of like Jewish Valentine's Day, Jewish matchmaking. And that Yom Kippur is one of the 2 happiest days of the year, one of the 2 most joyous days. Because we know we're forgiven. Now, how do we know that? Because we got the 10 Commandments, even after we messed up with the golden calf. So, Yom Kippur is a joyous day. The reason it has the connotation of being sad has nothing to do with us, it has to do with Catholic influence. In Catholicism, your holidays are split into 2 different types of holidays. Feast days and fast days. And feast days are celebratory and fast days are penance. Okay? Our fast day is not for penance. Our fast day is the exact opposite. is to disconnect us from anything in the physical world. So in Neshama, our soul is totally aware and in relationship, and can be in relationship with God, ask for forgiveness and be forgiven. Okay, totally different experience. How else do we know that Yom Kippur is not a sad day, but a happy day? Well, the fasting is not only not obligated, it's forbidden from certain people. From the young, the old, the infirm. You know who else is forbidden from fasting? Pregnant women. Right. You know who else though?
Sick.
Who?
The sick.
The sick, the infirm. My favorite? Newlyweds.
Really?
Newlyweds are not allowed to fast.
I didn't know that.
Okay, it's a great logic. Because when we fast, we start to have an odor. We don't want the newlyweds to become unattracted to each other because of the odor of fasting.
What do we consider really?
How many years have you been married to Erica?
6.
Okay, you're not. Typically a year. Although I guess in theory you could remarry yourself every year just so you could be newlywed. Never really thought about it that way of getting around the law. But yes, it's the idea that newlyweds are there. And so it's this beautiful holiday. And you celebrate a meal afterwards. And then you have this couple of days, this few days, and then you have the beginning of Sukkot, the other one of the 3 festivals. So Sukkot is about the transient qualities of the physical world. We start Sukkot, and the Sukkot is so beautiful and smells so wonderful. Palm fronds, you can decorate with fruits or flowers, and palm fronds are green. It's just fabulous. By the end of the week, the sukkah is a little bit beat up. Okay? Leaves have wilted. The fruit, if it's still there and hasn't been eaten by animals, might be not doing so well. Flowers might be a little wilty. So again, the meta-historical quality. The Sukkot, mean booths or tabernacles, is to commemorate the 40 years we were wandering in the desert at God's mercy. You know, I was thinking of this last night. There was a big windstorm late last night.
Yeah,
I mean, like, the house was shaking,
yeah.
right? Thinking, isn't it great? I live in this protected environment. However, it prevents me from being aware of my relationship with God in the same way. When you live in a sukkah, different thing. And we are told we must dwell in the sukkah, l'shev b'sukkah. We are to dwell in the sukkah. That means we are to eat our meals in the sukkah. We are to sleep in the sukkah. We are to make love in the sukkah. We are to study the sukkah. Everything in the sukkah. Absolutely powerful, wonderful holiday. You know, it's the only holiday that we are told is simchateinu, for our happiness. To the level that, if the weather is inclement, it starts raining, you don't get bonus points for staying in your sukkah. You are commanded to come in. Now there are some, again, who've been influenced by Eastern Catholicism, Eastern European Catholicism, that their minhag, and minhag, custom always trumps law. They believe they're going to stay in the sukkah no matter how nasty it is, and they get extra bonus points for suffering. Well, they can believe that all day, and zaygus to them. It's not the law. It's not the law. Okay? It is simchateinu for our happiness. The sukkah has a lot of laws to it in terms of how you build a sukkah. It cannot have more than 3.5 walls. It must have a ceiling of skach or palm frond. There must be enough ceiling that there's more shade than sun in the midday, but at nighttime you can see the stars. We like in our sukkah, and people build sukkahs in all different ways. Many people in Israel, as an example, they'll put palm fronds on top, but they'll put drywall and plywood, and they'll make little houses. Here's the customer. What we do, and probably because I just experienced one like this when I was a kid, and I think it's the neatest way. And if you can do it, I'd really like to do it. Although it's not nearly as warm as if you put drywall. We actually, as some of you know, we put up 4x4s and 2x4s, and I get palm fronds, these big 10 to 12 foot palm fronds every year from Loyola Marymount University. We bring one out here and we put up all the palm fronds. So our walls are actually made of palm fronds as well. And the first day it's a pretty solid wall. By the end of the week, you can see right through it. Okay, it's very noisy. Although
That when we have the Santa Anas too?
it doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah. And we build ours pretty solidly, so even like the winds last night, I think the sukkah we built would have withstood the winds. The sukkah would have withstood, I don't know how much of the palm fronds would have stayed on.
Top ones, maybe not.
Top ones maybe not, but the walls would have,
Yeah,
I think.
they would tie that.
It's tied on pretty well. So it is a temporary structure, okay, and it's really wonderful. The other thing that I have found, and my family has found, other people have found, is that you really often have lucid dreams when you sleep in a sukkah. It's really very beautiful. You want to understand sukkah, its essence, watch a movie called Ushpizin. It's a movie from Israel, it's subtitled. We watched it this past year in the sukkah. Were you there last year with this?
Not
Watch it.
really.
The two of you both saw it. You'd seen it.
What the ones that did.
Amazing movie.
What's
Real-
it called?
Ushpizin. U-S-H-P-I-Z-I-N. Now, Ushpizin means invited guests. Now, why does it say it called that?
Oh.
Because we are commanded to invite guests into our sukkah.
Would you spell it again?
U-S-H-P-I-Z-I-N.
We'll probably,
I'll bring it to you next week. Bring a
Fabulous.
USB.
Not next week, there's no class next
Then
week.
not
No,
next
no.
week. Now,
Fabulous movie. But
the idea is to be outdoors.
the idea is to be in nature, to be aware of your relationship with nature is part of it. That's the historical reality when we were wandering through the 40 years.
Why do you have to have this very specific sukkah?
Because the
Why
idea is,
can't I just go out on my patio?
because
With a
that's a
tent.
permanent structure. So we have a gazebo, right? And we have a wall. But the gazebo's there all year. So how is it
Why
temporary?
do I need a structure? Why can't I just go out there?
It's not just about being in nature, it's about having a temporary booth to be like when our ancestors were wandering in those 40 years.
A tent?
You can't see the ceiling, you can't see the stars.
Yes, I can.
With not through a tent you can.
There are tents that have just netting.
Then in theory you could have a tent, I guess. You can't have more than 3.5 walls, so you could have an open tent, I guess, and have, I'm gonna have to look at the laws and be specific, but you might be able to have an open tent with palm fronds on top of the tent.
I'm
Sounds
trying
like
to
a niche
cheat the
market.
system, can you tell?
I can tell, but I don't know what to tell you.
Without building the whole thing.
But it's
is
more
there a
fun.
way-
It's more fun. It is, it's a lot of fun. In a lot of ways to do it. You can buy prefabricated ones.
You get lattice,
Okay.
put lattice.
Yeah, they
down.
have prefabricated ones that are however size you want, and they're walls that you just put up. They're not hard walls, they're like a tent. They're fabric, and you put the palm
Just
fronds on
make it
top.
sound so easy.
That's easy. You can buy a prefabricated one and it takes you an hour to put up with that.
What's the one where they assemble things for your rabbit or go rabbit or something like that? They actually in Santa Monica have
or you
a
come to
division
the
who puts up
compass.
these things.
You can look, you go down Pico Boulevard, there's guys selling the temporary sukkot up and down Pico Boulevard. Excuse me for 1 second, as I said.
Amazon sells them.
Yes.
Get your money.
The
Sukkah in a
idea
box.
of having to put it up and dig it in.
Okay, so, it's a wonderful holiday. We actually stave the wood on the side and do some cooking. But it's a wonderful holiday how we do it, and it's very temperate. And it's commemorating the booths that our ancestors had. And it's about the transience of the physical world, the transitory quality of the physical world. You are commanded to invite guests in, and you have every night something called Ushpizin. This is a beautiful prayer, and it tells you something about Jewish theology, so I want you to listen to it carefully. Okay. It says, "Be seated, exalted guest, be seated, holy guest, be seated, faithful guest, be seated in the shade of the Holy One, blessed be He in His presence." It goes on for a while, and then every day, every night, you invite into your sukkah one of 7 people along. Today we do it with women as well, but traditionally it was only men. You would say, "I invite Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David to come into our sukkah, be seated at our meal, come into the sukkah." The first night you say, "Abraham, I invite you to come into the sukkah and lead our beloveds, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David." On the second night you say, "Isaac, I invite you to come and lead our beloved Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David." And now we add the women as well. We had Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Deborah, Miriam, and Ruth. Okay, maybe we can do that as well. We're inviting them in, last I checked, they're all dead. We're inviting them into the sukkah. But I thought we were forbidden from seances. And we were forbidden from summoning the dead. Right? Taught by the Book of Kings. And yet we do it. Why? Because we're not summoning them. We're inviting them. And there's a difference. You invite them to come.
Oh, like inviting Elijah.
We're not summoning them, we're inviting them. We invite them to come. It also tells you that we accept there is a world beyond this physical world after we die, isn't there? So, in your circle, whom else might you want to invite?
Your parents, if they're dead,
Bingo. Your grandparents.
grandparents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come sit at a meal. See what we're doing.
Dead
It's a
president.
beautiful holiday. And if there's any dead president I would want to invite. You know, certainly, you know, come and sit and be with us. It says interesting things about our theology. Okay? And there's also an understanding that on Rosh Hashanah, we move from a physical place over the 10 days up to this peak of Yom Kippur. Right? Purely spiritual. Then we have a few days in between and then Sukkot, and it is to take us back down into the physical. Hopefully with the knowledge that we've gained while we've been in the spiritual world. The last night of Sukkot, we have something called, we then have a holiday called Shmini Atzeret. This is the holiday where we pray for rain. When someone says we don't do a rain dance, they don't know what they're talking about. We do hakafot, we do cycles where we pray for rain. And often we combine the two, but the other holiday then becomes Simchas Torah, where it is the renewal of the Torah. We read the last paragraph of the Torah and the first paragraph of the Torah. So now we have guidelines how to move into the world. From Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, down through the end, Simchas Torah and Simchas Torah. We have guidelines how to exist in the world. Powerful time, isn't it? Okay. We then have a month off of holidays, which many of us are so grateful for. So there's, as one person said to me, I will not say who it is, just in case you know who this rabbi is. He once said to me when I was a rabbinic student, just remember, there's foolish rabbis and wise rabbis. And the foolish rabbis take their vacations during the summertime before they go and have high holidays. And the wise rabbis wait till after Sukkot and Simchas Torah and then take their vacation. Okay? Which is always harder with your children, so you kind of have to be foolish rabbis. But the point is that we get a month off for holidays. And then we have Hanukkah. Hanukkah, again, as we study, is a holiday that has a historical component. The success of the Hashmoneans, the Maccabees, against the Seleucids, and the rededication of the temple. It has the spiritual component of light being placed in the middle of darkness, and our faith in that light shines through. And so we have both qualities that go. Hanukkah meaning dedication. What Hanukkah means when you put a mezuzah in your home, it's called a Hanukkah Habayit. Actually what it's called. And so we have these wonderful, this wonderful holiday. Hanukkah is actually called the Little Sukkot in the Talmud, and the two holidays are connected. In between there's a 70-day period, and it's like the counting of the Omer. It's 10 weeks, each week focusing on a different sphira. Okay, each week a different idea of what is the temple you want to build in your life. Not necessarily a physical temple, but what is the temple that you want? What do you want to create? Now when you're doing architecture and you're building a building, you build the structure first, right? It's the first thing you do. You have your architectural plans, but you build the outside first.
Build a foundation.
You build foundation, but you don't build the inside. Okay? It's the last thing you do. When everything's done. Turn on lights. In the same way, this is the time period between that. What you will not find in the sukkah is you won't find a mezuzah, you won't find a near tummy of eternal light. Okay? So we go through this period, and then we light our lights on Hanukkah, having built our temple, what we need for the light for the year, based upon what we experienced and learned during the high holidays, and then we are able to live that in the next year. Okay? And the next holiday after Hanukkah, anyone know? Tu B'Shvat. You start all over. You can start at you see this cycle, you'll see that holidays pair off with each other. You see that there's a connection between the holidays. You see that there's this cycle like this, right? Rosh Hashanah, we come to Yom Kippur, we go through Sukkot, we Shmini Atzer, we come to Hanukkah, it's back and forth. We go to the Shvat. There's one big holiday, well there's two. The simple one is, also every month we have a holiday called Rosh Chodesh, which is the new moon ceremony, traditionally led by women. It's a women's ceremony to welcome the new moon. It's one other holiday I didn't mention yet. No one knows. So I'll give you a hint. I'm going to go back to Yom Kippur and why we know it's happy. Yom Kippur is called the Shabbat of Shabbats. Okay? And so it's happy. And if Yom Kippur falls on a Shabbat, it's called the Shabbat of Shabbats. We are not allowed to be sad on Shabbat. If Tisha Bob falls on Shabbat, we move Tisha Bob, like we did this past year, from the 9th of Av to the 10th of Av. Cannot have a fast day like Tisha Bob on Shabbat. Shabbat supersedes it. But you can fast on Yom Kippur. Again, proof that the fasting is not for penance, for celebration. But this other holiday that we have throughout the year is this holiday called Shabbos or Shabbat. We get it every week. And we have Shabbat, and Shabbat starts on Friday evening. We prepare, we light the candles, have our Shabbat service, we have our meals, we bless our children, we thank our wives, we do the last chapter of the book of Proverbs to our wives, which is Chayil, a woman of valor, which is precious and hard to find. And then we have this whole Friday night, this night of intimacy. On Saturday morning, we study and we have Torah reading. Saturday afternoon, we read the Torah portion for the next upcoming week. And Saturday evening, we have Havdalah, meaning separation. Tradition is the Messiah, I think. Our time will come on Havdalah. But that's this one tradition. And then we have Havdalah, and then we look towards the next week. Now, you can celebrate Havdalah all the way through Tuesday night. You don't have to do Havdalah until Tuesday night. But if you do that, you got to observe Shabbat law all the way from Friday to Tuesday. So don't get all excited. Okay? You got to observe it. So we spend our week remembering Shabbat, and then looking forward to the next Shabbat. And it is a time of intimacy, it's a time of study, it's a time of faith, and a time of storytelling, a time of learning. A day, as my friend Rabbi Arthur Rosh Schaefer has said, it's the day when God sends a note to Celeste. Thank you for all the good work you've done all week. It's one day I can rule the world without your help. Okay? It's a day of rest. A day of being at one with God and really doing that. I once asked my friend and teacher Rabbi Greenbaum in Jerusalem, I said to him, I want to do more teaching. What should I do? I was thinking, who's going to say? Because I was teaching at a small college before I was teaching lawyer. And he said, I'm thinking, he's an Oxford scholar, I think he's going to say to me, okay, you need to publish here, you need to publish there. That's what I'm thinking. He pauses. Michael, you need to celebrate Shabbos. And the reason is because when we make a commitment in our physical world to change our spiritual awareness and reality, that manifests in a different physical reality as well. So Shabbos is so important. So important. Now often you'll hear me not say Shabbat Shalom, you'll hear me say Good Shabbos. Right? So, it's nice, it's kind of Yiddish, but it's kind of Orthodox. There's actually another reason as well. Everybody talked about Gematria, numerical values, the power, letters and numbers. Good, meaning good, is spelled Gimel, Vav, Tet. Gimel is the number 3, Vav is the number 6, Tet is the number 9. So what does Gut mean? What's the number?
15.
3 plus 6 plus 9.
18.
18. It's Chai. Meaning you have a Shabbos of living, of life. So when you say Good Shabbos, it's not just saying a Sabbath of peace, you're saying you have a Sabbath of Chai, a Sabbath of life, of living. May this be a Shabbat. You're wishing someone more than just Shabbat Shalom, or good Shabbat. Or may you have a happy Shabbos, you're saying may you have a Sabbath. Oh, it's hidden right in there in plain sight though, isn't it? So, Shabbat keeps us, as Rabbi Heschel, blessed memory, taught us, more than the Jews have kept the Sabbath has kept the Jews. It's preserved us and has guarded us. It is every week an opportunity. It's also opportunities. If we reverse engineer, if Yom Kippur is called a Sabbath of Sabbaths, and we take an accounting and make amends for our last year, what could we also do on Shabbat? Take an accounting and make amends for the last week. Right? So we don't have so much when it comes to Yom Kippur. More importantly, so our relationships are deeper. And so Shabbat really is the thread that holds and ties it all together. These are the basic holidays that we have, the basic structure that we have of the calendar.
Busy.
We're busy, except for the month after. So that's
Phew.
all. And with except for Shabbat we have. What's your experience and thoughts about this calendar? Any thoughts or experience?
Busy.
There's more than I do.
There's also, by the way, other days that have come in the last century. We have Yom HaShoah, which is the memorial of the Holocaust. We have Yom HaAtzmaut. We have Yom HaZikaron, the Day of Remembrance, the Day of Israel Independence. It's different holidays, the more modern holidays that we have placed into our calendar. But the traditional calendar is what I said to you. The newest holiday of the traditional calendar that I said, that I just taught to you, is Simchas Torah. Is the newest holiday. That's probably only 500 or 600 years old. That's the newest one. But how many of us observe these? How many of us even know these?
Well, they all have to do with relationships and community, and either your personal relationships or your relationships with God or your relationships with the community.
One of the things I've come across is that there were many benefactors who will pay young families to go into communities, usually in the southeast, to sustain or build congregation. And
Do you know any of them? Because we could use more money for us.
sadly, no. But the sustaining comes from a very close adherence to the holiday calendar, because it brings a bonding between very, very small communities, including many families that don't have children or who are empty nesters. In many parts, of course, in the southeast, the community just runs over, and it's a way of maintaining your identity. It's also, I don't like the word impressive, but it indicates a tremendous amount of faith and trust in your history. So it kind of is like a bulwark or an anchor.
Foundation stone.
Yeah.
Look, it's ironic how often in communities or areas where there are not many Jews, they will tie together with that, and they will be very active in observing these holidays, as opposed to where we are in Westlake Village in California, where
You go down the cul-de-sac and you can identify secular or observant.
pretty
Not
fast,
Christian because the lights are blue and white.
or how we choose to assimilate. People choose to assimilate. In some ways, it's harder here than it is in a community where everyone's overt about their anti-Semitism. Because here, where there's secular Jews as well, who have their own anti-Semitic beliefs against observance, it's even harder.
And against Israel.
Absolutely. Last year, we were at this kids' school. This assembly we were doing, talking about the parental organization. It's not called PTA at this school. It's called something else. It's called MSN or MNBC or MCN or something. Anyhow, so, and the president is talking about their calendar, their schedule, and as they're talking about it, he's talking about the big fundraiser. And I realized that the last night of Passover, now, the last night of Passover is a biblical obligation. Okay? It is a, whether you say it or not, it is a biblical obligation. Just like first night and second night. You know, I told you, my friend Schwartzy, blessed his memory, right? Sent out a text to me, you know. Remember, on first night you must have shmur matzah, second night, no matter even if you're alone, don't have a seder, have a little shmur matzah. We are, so the last day of Passover,
Biblical, really?
last day of
I thought it
Passover,
was
the
just a
seder is not
tradition.
necessarily, but the Passover, the holiday itself is a commandment. We are commanded to take that off of work, it is a holy day. Okay, last day of Passover. And so they've got their big fundraiser scheduled for the last day of Passover. And me being the wallflower that I am, when they're.
Well, that's a stretch.
Actually, I'm very into it, I'd rather stay at home.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I would. I mean, that's my wife, I just love Torah so much that I'm teaching it, but I actually am very happy just being over it, but she's saying this, and I said, excuse me, it's not gonna affect that, and it may not matter to you, but you should know that you're planning your event on the last night of Passover, so Jews would not be able to eat most of the food you serve, and it's a biblical holiday, we're commanded, you know, it's a holiday, we're commanded not to do this. And the person at the head, who's the president of this organization, who then from that moment on hated me because I embarrassed her, said, well, I'm Jewish, and I've never heard of anything except the first night of Passover. I said,
Lack
well,
of planning on your part does not make an emergency on mine.
and I said, look, you know, I appreciate that, no one has to observe what they have to observe, and you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter, we're not gonna be there. I'm just telling you, not only the first night, the second night was Seder, and the last night's a holiday. You can do what you want, but I'm telling you, it's a religiously observant day. Just so you know, not that they gave it to her. But she was very offended that anyone would say there's more to Passover than the first night Seder.
I go through this in Scouts all the time.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, what
They
people
say,
don't know,
okay, so those people just won't come.
which is totally fine, I'm good with that.
I'm not.
I'm fine with it. I have no issue with it, with them saying, you know, this is the scheduling, and I do not need someone else to adjust their schedule for me. But don't hold my lack of participation against me. That's all. You don't have to reschedule yourself around my schedule, but don't hold our lack of participation against my children.
You know, I appreciate how you form your departure, your closing argument with her. On the other hand, you have to look at it, if she was gunning for a fight.
Someone's got to make the statement.
Yeah.
She probably embarrassed her.
I'm sure
It sounds
But
like
some-
it happens often.
someone needs to make this statement.
I do it
You
all
know,
the time.
you mean really, really, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?
Where?
Right? This great Jewish dictate. And so, if no one's going to say it, then why should she even think that she's wrong? And is there any chance she will learn? Now, I'm not asking them to change it for me. I'm just saying, be aware of it. You know?
I guess the flip side of that is it's amazing how many closed-minded or closed people there are in the ed biz.
Yes. And look, my practices do not dictate that anyone. I go to a regular Sunday breakfast at Cantor's, okay, with this group of guys. I order iced green tea, because I can't eat the food there.
At campus?
Can't eat the food.
Okay.
It's not kosher at all.
Well, it's not.
Just because it's on Fairfax doesn't mean it's kosher.
I mean, that's not true. There are certain things I could eat. I can eat ice cream, because the ice cream scooper has only been taken out. in theory, I could have their locks on a glass bowl, because I don't have a glass plate. I have it on a glass bowl. But the locks is not very high quality. I have a iced green tea. They can make a pot of green tea and a glass of ice, and that's what I have. I'm not asking, and pretty much everyone else there is Jewish,
Yeah,
right? I'm not asking anyone else, when they're eating their corned beef hash or their bacon and eggs, I'm fine with it. I don't care.
yeah.
Totally, I really am. I'm totally fine with it. But I'm not going to. They want to have a fundraiser on Pesach? Your choice. Just be aware it's Passover, and I'm not going to. The guys there at breakfast know why I don't eat. It's not that I'm being rude. It's,
Soft in the inside, hard in the outside.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's soft on the outside, hard on the inside.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
My grandmother used to order hard-boiled eggs
They could have a hard-boiled egg as well.
in the shop.
I could do. I just do a mess. You can also do a soft-boiled egg too, but it's a mess. I just don't want it. It's just not worth me paying $20 for an egg. I mean, in theory I could, but I just have green tea. It's just not a big deal to me. I'm there because the people. I'm not there to eat. And then when they were next door, I used to always go. Now they closed that store, so I only sometimes go to Schwartz's Bakery afterwards and bring back the kosher baked goods for the kids. But the point is that these are our holidays for us to observe. We can invite others to them, but these are our holidays. And again, if you want to know more about practices of any of the holidays, I'm pretty sure Rabbi Greenberg is a Reform rabbi. This is an amazing, amazing book called The Jewish Way. When was it published? Without my glasses, you're going to expect me to use a long time.
Online, I know what you're going through.
You don't have yours on either. A long time
I
ago.
have mine on.
It was, the original book date is somewhere in here. It should be up here somewhere. All right, oh, wait, thank you.
They're all listed in the.
That didn't help me a whole lot, that actually, so it says 1988 was when it was originally
Jews.
published.
275, we'll bring you 3.
So this is from '88, it was originally published, but it's been republished and republished. And it's, you can buy the paperback on Amazon. And it's really a terrific book that goes over the history and how the practices of the holidays. So I certainly recommend it as a great way of understanding Judaism. When I teach people for conversion, it's one of the books I immediately say, look, you should just get this book and start going through it. You should know these holidays, experience them. Maybe you don't want to do Tu B'Shvat every year, but you know what, you should do Tu B'Shvat a little bit. At least go plant a tree. Go tree hug. We were the first tree huggers.
I read
Maybe you don't want to observe, Tisha Bob and fast. Try it once. Maybe you haven't done well in the Sukkot. Try one in the Sukkot. You might find that it's really, really wonderful. So, does that help a little bit to understand our calendar? This was very cursory, you realize. But that is our calendar. That is who we are and how we practice and what we practice in our year.